So everybody's been talking about this Oppenheimer movie. Barbenheimer, Oppenheimer, Barbie. Finally saw Oppenheimer. I initially was holding out. I'm not really a format fetishist, but everybody was like, oh my God, you have to see it in IMAX. You have to see it in 70 millimeter IMAX. You have to see it on film. It was shot on IMAX 70. You should really see it on IMAX 70. So we tried to see it on IMAX 70, but it was booked for weeks. And I really did want to get, my review in for all of you who just, are strange people who wouldn't see it until I talked about it, or really just to have, more fodder for the television version of this fine review program. So I went to see Oppenheimer last night in IMAX at my local AMC, so digital IMAX. The 70, I would have wanted to see it in 70. I love the fact that 70 millimeter exists and it's still being shown here and there, but it was frankly, just too much time, money, and effort would have been required to see it that way. And I think my local AMC does a pretty good job at showing movies. So I went to see it in regular old digital. Honestly, I can't imagine I would have liked it tremendously more if it was a little bit sharper in 70. But I wish I could have seen it that way. Put it that way. If you leave a comment, let me know if you did see it in 70. If you saw it in more than one format, that's what I would really like to know. If anybody saw it in 70 and in digital, and if one really took the edge over the other, that would be really cool to hear. So Oppenheimer, what is this film about? It's about 3 hours long. It is the story of Robert Oppenheimer, the man who was the father of the atomic bomb, the man who spearheaded the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos and helped the United States to beat everybody else in the world to having an atomic bomb, which was then dropped on Japan twice to end the World War II. The World War II, as opposed to a World War II. So much talked about film. There's a lot to talk about here. And I will, because hey, I've got all the time in the world of yours to waste. Oppenheimer biopic, non-linear biopic, jumps around a little bit. Framing device for this is Oppenheimer's security clearance with the U.S. is in jeopardy, and he basically is having to justify his life by recounting his life experiences to this governmental board. So we keep bopping back and forth to that in various points in his life, but the real core of the film is the development of the atomic bomb at Los Alamos, and all that it took, and all of the risks that were taken, and the uncertainties as to whether it would work, and as to whether it would cause, the end of the world in one way or the other. Cillian Murphy is Robert Oppenheimer, and he's fantastic in this. I mean, it's a Christopher Nolan movie. I'm not like part of the cult of Christopher Nolan, but I say the guy makes good movies. I don't think I've seen a movie of his that I thought was not good. And there's always a lot of quality there and a lot of thought and effort and artistry put into it. So it's the story of Robert Oppenheimer. Everybody in this film is fantastic. You will see a million familiar faces. You will see a lot of people you haven't seen in a while, and you're like, wow, they're a lot older, or the makeup is good. And it's just across the board, outstanding performances, really tense. Here's the thing. Anybody who's aware of history and the world around them, they kind of know how this movie ends, at least in terms of the atomic bomb portion of it. Yet still, the filmmaking is so good. This movie plays like a thriller. It's an edge of your seat. Will they get the bomb done in time? We know the answer to that. Will the bomb, ignite the Earth's atmosphere? We know how that plays out. Will it be an effective experiment? We know how that will work too, yet it's done so well and the performances are so compelling that it is an edge-of-your-seat thriller. It's really, really well done. The IMAX-ness of this, let's talk about this. So IMAX is generally, to a lot of people, IMAX is a big screen to watch films on. But initially, format-wise, IMAX is a specific thing, and it's a specific ratio. It's really more of a square. It's more of a tall thing than it is a wide thing. And I did notice times in this film where it did fill the IMAX frame, but I noticed a lot of the time it was just widescreen. It was a widescreen film, which surprised me. Now, I'm not super bright on all the technical aspects of this, and I also have not studied this film's history and this film's production and creation and all that stuff, so I really couldn't tell you why it is that way. I just know that a lot of times when I hear something, shot for IMAX, I expect that it's going to be top to bottom IMAX the whole time. And this wasn't, not that it detracted from my enjoyment at all, it was just a technical thing that I noticed. The film is a mix of color and black and white, and I just read about that. It's basically used to denote whether a sequence of the film is objective or subjective, which I thought was very interesting. Apparently no CGI in the film, which I appreciate, all done practically. And just like I say, just really solidly well-made film. What I find interesting about this is this whole Barbenheimer thing, this whole internet thing that created this linking of these two totally unrelated films just because they were two films that were really, really different, seemingly, that were being released on the same day. And it became this phenomenon, this meme or meme, as I like to say, that was everybody should go see these movies back to back, because won't that be wacky if we see the Barbie movie and the Oppenheimer movie on the same day? And it's led to, really, really good news for theaters. I mean, the best theater attendance I think they've seen probably easily since the pandemic. And if it's getting people to go to the movies, I'm all for it. And if it's getting people to see movies they normally wouldn't that are good, I'm all for that too. And sure enough, in our theater, this was a Monday matinee, 12:30 p.m. in the afternoon on a weekday, and there were teenagers there. There were like teens on dates there. There were like dude bros there. It was really weird to see people going to this movie who you would think would never go to see a 3-hour talky historical drama, but they were doing it. And the crowd was perfectly behaved, which is what I'm hearing. And everybody, I didn't hear anybody complaining at the end of it. And I think that's really great. If some dumb internet phenomenon is going to get people to go and see films of quality that might open their eyes to say, hey, wow, movies without lasers and monsters and superheroes might be worth going to see and pay for once in a while, I'm all for that. I do wonder, though, if this is going to lead to studios being like, what do we got we can make work that way? And, if we're going to see a lot of forced, phenomenons of let's go see these two disparate films together. I think this is a thing that probably really will only work once, but we're not really talking about Oppenheimer at this point, are we? So Oppenheimer, very good film. Be prepared for a very long runtime. Be prepared for a little nudity here and there that you might not have expected in this film, a little saucitation that you might not have expected, but it's done very, very tastefully and very briefly. From what I've read, I always go to the History versus Hollywood website to check out biopics and based on a true story films to see how accurate they are. From what I've seen, this is a very accurate film. There are some things that are conjecture, which is always the case for dramatic purposes in any biopic. So the relationship between Oppenheimer and his communist bedmate, shall we say, is a lot of conjecture, apparently. And there are some things between like Oppenheimer and Einstein that were conjecture, that were just done for dramatic purposes. But overall, apparently the film is rather accurate, based on a book whose title, again, I couldn't have been bothered to. Something about the modern Prometheus, which is the subtitle of Frankenstein, something with Prometheus. I'm not very smart. I don't read so much unless it's about movies, but it's based on a book and apparently very accurately based on that book. So in theaters now, still probably for a while. Definitely a big screen experience. Certainly this will be still a good movie when it comes time to see it on home video, but everything's better in the theater, and especially a film that's very dialogue heavy and long, you want to be able to focus on that, and in the theater is the way to do it. So in theaters now, Oppenheimer.